Let's see. If you're just joining us, why don't we just, everyone, if you haven't been with us before, it's best if you want to just start out saying hello in the chat function and where you're calling in from.
Okay.
Fabulous. And if you already, maybe if you already have a title for an event in mind, that'd be pretty cool to see too. If you're already thinking about an event. Hi in Southern Oregon. Hi from Pittsburgh.
What time do you have to have it?
Amazing. Meeting your beloved death. The shell of memory. These are great. Hi from Philadelphia. Oh, the immigrant experience. That's great.
Yeah.
So just so everyone knows, I'm going to start the webinar, and I mean, ostensibly we have started as we are all here. This is basically the same content that we shared a week ago about how to kick off and participate in an event. So if you were already here last week at this time, feel free to stay with us and double soak in the knowledge that and maybe see our presentation evolve slightly, but you're basically getting the same story, but you're of course welcome to stay. If you're new to this welcoming webinar, this is your chance to learn about how to participate in the upcoming Reimagine Life, Loss, and Love Festival and Conversation, a worldwide virtual festival that will be beginning May 1st. And I'm very excited that you're here because you are what makes this whole thing special and possible. So with that in mind, we're just gonna get going. If you have questions during the webinar, please write them in the chat, and then we will be addressing them there, and then at the end. And just so you know, the webinar wasn't necessarily planned to answer the questions as part of the hour, but we are gonna, as I'll share in the, as I'll share, if you wanna hang on, we will do some Q&A for those of you who have questions to make sure questions that aren't answered in the chat are responded to live. So with that in mind, let's get going. So, all right, today's goals. So we're gonna talk about our, sorry, I was muted momentarily. We're gonna talk about our role in the face of this epidemic. We're then gonna begin talking about co-creating a virtual worldwide festival together. We're gonna learn how you and we can all collaborate. And really we wanna walk away just being inspired because we're all doing something new and it's gonna take energy and love and inspirations at the foundation. So our agenda today, it's a 1-hour meeting. We're gonna do an overview of this upcoming festival and conversation. We're gonna talk about what it means to be a Reimagine collaborator, how to plan a successful event. Then we're gonna really walk you through the meat of it, which is a demo of the different tools you'll be using. And then we'll hear how to market your event, and then important next steps for participation, and then the optional Q&A. And we can talk about whether or not we're gonna do breakouts, but we have a maybe better idea for breakouts at a later point. So let's get to an overview. So as many of you know, Reimagine's purpose is really working to transform our individual and collective experience around serious illness, caregiving, dying, grieving, and really living. And heretofore, we've been focused on trying to, of course, remove and reduce some of these things you see here, trying to reduce the sense of taboo around these topics, reduce isolation, mitigate fear, ameliorate confusion, and try to lessen the feelings of loss. But what we're really doing is in what the work we try to do is actually move from there to something positive, from taboo to acceptance, from isolation to community, from fear into a state of love, from confusion to really education, and from loss into one of celebration. So we believe facing and talking about hard things, and specifically the topics that we're all working on together, can shift our entire culture if they're approached in the way that you do. And so heretofore, we've been focused on bringing these experiences in person. In person is really what our whole belief system is built around, that we need to be together to have these conversations. And we've been in 2 cities, New York and San Francisco. We've had 30,000 attendees, 700 plus events, and over 500 partners making this possible, and really seeing the power of in-person convenings with a plan to bring these festivals to cities across the country. What's exciting, and I think what makes what we're doing together unique, is that the audiences that we try to reach through your hard work are totally intergenerational and with an attempt to be extremely diverse. We have basically an equal number of attendees from all the different age ranges, and 40% of Reimagine events have been hosted by, for, and in vulnerable and or marginalized communities, including seniors. So it's really important that we reach out to new audiences. Also, 80% of the attendees are outside of the healthcare industry. And that is also important because we're not just trying to talk to the same people. So we've been planning for over the last year how to scale these festivals to new communities, from San Francisco to New York to, I know on the call, we've been working really hard to bring this to Austin and to a number of other cities across the United States. That was our goal, of figuring out how that could happen and to meet the demand of communities across the country. And then, of course, the coronavirus has taken foot, and the idea of being in person is no longer viable right now. And so we've reconstituted our efforts, and this amazing team at Reimagine that I have the privilege of working with every day has been working tirelessly to say, what can we do right now? How do we transform the tools that we've built and some of the systems? And therefore, we are launching together instead a worldwide virtual festival that can connect people, not just in local communities, but using these tools, connect people in these conversations that you're hosting from across the world. And of course, right now, the reason that that is important is because really we're talking about one universal story. And in general, as we as an organization think about death as really the focal point of what we've been working on, that's a universal topic. And there's not many, but now we've found ourselves amidst another. And that one is also surrounding the same theme. So our work right now together is probably needed more so than ever before. And that's why we're excited to work with you together to create Reimagine Life, Loss, and Love, a worldwide virtual festival beginning May 1st and really extending every day through June 7th. This is not a traditional festival where it's just like a week and it's done. Our belief is, let's keep this going and make this as an ever-present space in people's lives that they can turn to find the best content, most immersive, beautiful experiences around the types of thematic elements that you're bringing to this conversation. So what are those elements? And these are the themes that we're going to be addressing together, which are really the same themes we typically address, but they have heightened importance in this day and age. The first is, how do we help people wonder about the big questions regarding life and death, illness and loss, love and connection, through spirituality, science, and the arts? Then the theme of preparation. How do you prepare for and manage serious illness, dying and death for ourselves and the people that we care about? Of utmost importance right now is also this idea of remembrance. How do we remember to create space for all types of grief and honor those that we love through memories, through words, and through actions? And finally, we believe, as I think all of the people on this call do, that it's not just important at the very end of life, but how do we live fully today in the present? How do we live fully in the face of our impermanence, embrace life, our families, our communities, and our planet through well-being, purpose, and positive impact? And so these 4 themes, any event you submit should hit at, should touch on at least one of these themes. And that's that is our call to you to look at these, to try to think about how your experience is fitting in this ecosystem, but we are confident that the things you're coming up with, as I'm seeing in the chat, do a great job. So what's exciting here is that we are not just amplifying events. We have just rolled out, as of last week, a new part of our website and offering that can happen during this experience, which is what's called Reimagine Community Resources, where not only are you invited to upload your events, but if you, if you have an organization or you do work, any kind of resources you can offer the community, whether it's products or services or any kinds of articles or any tips that you have in this time, you'll have the ability through our portal not just to add events, but also resources. And then together, we're working, because you're each coming in from your own place, that will amplify one another, and then we will amplify all of it, and hopefully we'll kind of cut through the noise that is created in society to make a more positive impact. And finally, I want to share this quote. As maybe some of you know, that Reimagine was initially conceived during work as part of an organization, IDEO, which is a design innovation firm that thinks about innovation all the time and forward-thinking ideas. And the founder of IDEO has this quote that I think is very apt at this moment in time. Constraints can spur creativity and incite action as long as you have the confidence to embrace them. And as we know, we are all faced with a number of constraints. We have a constraint around the technologies that we're able to offer right now, our ability to be together in person. We have, of course, our universal constraint of our lives that we all face death. And with that set of constraints, what can we do together if we have the confidence to embrace those constraints? And I think this is an initiative that is born out of thinking, how can we get creative given what we are able to do and make that as unique and novel and beautiful as we can together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my incredible colleague, Dara Cosberg, who runs programming at Reimagine, and she's going to share more about what it means to collaborate with us.
Sorry. Thanks, Brad. I was on mute. Well, first off, it's really lovely to see all of you. I see some former collaborators from San Francisco and New York, so I'm excited that you're interested in participating again. And I'm also personally really excited that some of you have your cats in the video. I'm a cat person, so that's exciting for me. Just to start off, I just want to give a little kind of overview about Reimagine and how this all works. So first off, we are a community-driven festival. So while a number of the events are produced by the Reimagine team, the vast majority are organized by individuals and organizations who are inspired to create an event or project. And we want to support all of you as much as we can through strategic guidance and content development, connections and resources such as these webinars, as well as our new help center, which you'll get a link to after this event. And what we are really is a platform to shine light on this topic, as Brad shared, to create this cultural shift. And it's also an opportunity for all of you and for us to innovate, experiment, collaborate in a community of creators. So I really would invite you to take some risks and try something new, especially in this virtual environment where it's not as difficult in some ways to get something up and running fairly quickly. This is also an opportunity for you to be self-driven and resourceful. And we do rely heavily on collaborators, on them using the systems that we've designed and looking at the resources we've laid out. Of course, we're here to help answer your questions, but we are a small team, and we just want to make sure that you're as supported as possible. So what we're the platform, the brand, the resources, the overall game plan, the kind of general marketing and publicity campaigns. And it's our responsibility as a nonprofit to create these systems so that and this platform for you or to support your individual efforts. To note that this is our first virtual festival, and we're all in this together and still learning what's going to work best. I'm sure there's going to be huge learnings just in the first few weeks of the festival, which we will relay back to you as well. So to that end, we really appreciate any and all feedback, suggestions from you to make this as positive an experience for you and your attendees. So really your role is to do the amazing work that you do. And, you'll be creating the events, producing the events. You'll be reaching out to, your existing networks as well as trying to create new ones. And we hope through this experience that you, even get better with designing these virtual experiences, especially if this is the first time you've kind of ventured into this space. And, we also will create opportunities for you all to connect with each other and support each other. And there's been some really amazing partnerships and collaborations that have come out of these festivals during and then even afterwards. So in terms of the kind of nuts and bolts, our main, we do have some ground rules that everyone needs to agree to and abide by so that things can run smoothly and we're all moving in the same direction. And you heard Brad talk about our mission and values earlier, which we all should hold one another accountable for upholding. We ask that you, pay close attention to the emails and messages that we send and review the materials and resources we provide. We are going to be offering different webinars along the way, and we really hope that you will watch them or participate in them. We do have a centralized ticketing platform, which Brad will talk about later, and that we expect people to use. And we are also developing or have developed a number of assets for you to use in your own marketing efforts. We'll continue to roll out more of them along the way in the festival. And there will be a collaborator agreement that you are expected to sign, and it's built into our event portal where you'll be adding your events, and Brad will be talking about that very shortly. So now I'm just gonna kind of give a very, I'd say, high-level overview about some of the things that you can start thinking about now as you design your event. I do want to highlight, though, that we will be having another webinar, which we'll send a link to after this webinar, that is a more in-depth opportunity to explore how you can create an effective virtual event and more about the technologies that you can use, especially Zoom and Facebook Live. So just to kind of open your mind about what your Reimagine event could be, there honestly really aren't many limits as long as it aligns with the mission and values of Reimagine, and as long as it sparks new ways of thinking, connection, and conversation. So it could be a concert, it could be a comedy show, it could be an interview between two people, it could be a workshop. I think one of the things that people, the magic of Reimagine that people speak about is this diversity of offerings and different gateways into this conversation. And I just wanted to highlight our own experiment in virtual offerings. We, soon after this whole thing started, we partnered up with the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley to develop something called the Dose of Togetherness, which we've been doing 3 days a week for over a month now. And they consist of a meditation, a short talk by a thought leader in the space, and then small group discussions based on questions that were brought up during the reflections. And what we have seen here is just like I mean, it kind of, I think, blew our mind in terms of how quickly people wanted to attend these, and the continuing and growing interest in being part of this community that is forming. And on the next slide, I just wanted to highlight, one more back. There you go. These are just some of the testimonials or feedback that we've gotten from our surveys. And what they do is they just underscore how connection is possible in the virtual space. And that has definitely, it's my favorite part of the week, is talking to people all over the world in these small groups of 4 and 5. So I just want to also say that I am now a firm believer in the opportunity of the virtual space, and think that you really can drive meaningful connections through it. So just some of the things, and again, we'll go more in depth on Tuesday in the webinar, but just some things to keep in mind if you are new to creating virtual events. So one is really starting from your past in-person events and trying to boil down what made them special. What was it that, brought connection and learning, or whatever your main goals were. And then try to think about how you can bring those into a virtual experience. And part of that is understanding the different technologies that you could use to build those connections. Or build those opportunities. One other thing just to think about, and this is just from my own learning, creating virtual experiences, is by simplifying and shortening different aspects of the event, they may be more effective in the virtual space. So that could be the number of people you have involved, so there aren't as many transitions that you're doing, and perhaps if there's a talking portion of the event, maybe that's a little shorter to build more interactivity. But all of that being said, it's really up to you in terms of how you want to design it. One other thing to think about is having a really good plan and backup support in case you run into an issue. We've all been part of virtual events where there have been snafus or something's just not working right. And I can say personally, having some team members helping me or on these types of events has made all the difference in working through them. And along those lines, it's also really important that you prepare your attendees in advance, not just in terms of the flow and so to kind of prepare them, but also making sure that they understand the technology and know how to use the different features that you'll be having. And then I'm going to just end with giving a short run through of some of the best practices that we've just learned through creating these festivals. One of the best practices is incorporating a Reimagine theme, whether it's wonder, prepare, remembrance, live fully. We have more information in our help center about this, but we want to make sure that your event really does fit within the overall platform that we're trying to create. Another one is, again, this is really a great time to partner and innovate. And now that there aren't geographical issues or restraints, I think this is also an opportunity for you to think about what kind of partners would you want to work with, given that you could really almost partner with anyone at this point. Not to make it totally overwhelming, but I think, if there was somebody that you've always wanted to do an interview with, I'll just say that also people's availability right now, I've found that people are more easily able to be included in programming. It's also thinking about what kinds of ideas might be different that you could try. So like, for example, Bridge Stories from Elders, the concept there was taking a TED Talk and sort of turning on its head by having people over 85 share their wisdom and having younger people interview them. So that's just one idea. And on the next slide, I'm sorry, trying to make it as interactive and useful as possible. You know, some events are going to be more learning based, and these are, you know, some examples of workshops. But again, there are a lot of opportunities with the technology to create different ways, either high touch or low touch, you know, opportunities. And I would very much say that even if you have a mostly performance-based event, giving opportunities, whether it's at the beginning or the end, for people to connect with each other, I think is a really important element of Reimagine events. And lastly, you know, there is a lot of content out there. So taking time to write compelling marketing copy is important. And again, we do have some best practices around that in our help center, but thinking of what kinds of titles might catch people's eyes, and what type of, you know, teaser content is going to get people to click on your event is also important. And lastly, we invite you all to join our Facebook Worldwide Collaborator Group. So even if you have been part of the San Francisco and New York collaborator groups, you can also join the virtual one. This has been a great way for collaborators to connect and learn from each other and partner with each other. And we will send a link to that afterwards as well. And with that, I will pass it back off to Brad.
Thank you, Dara. So now we are going to show you really what this looks like from the belly of the beast, or in other words, what you're actually going to be doing through our platforms and tools. So let's open up a demo. So first of all, the first step that you're going to have as a collaborator is through our website, letsreimagine.org, and actually we'll send out this link after. There's a tab called Create an Event. And at the Create an Event tab, you're going to fill out a short concept proposal that should take literally, given the titles I'm seeing on the right, just a couple minutes to fill out and send in. And then as soon as that gets submitted and approved, and really that's done to make sure that you're on theme and you're in our system, you only have to do it one time, even if you want to do multiple events, just to know that you're on the right track. Then you're going to get a link to this site that I have up here right now, which is our collaborator portal built specifically for you guys to enter your events and resources. And so you'll create an account here, and then upon registering, you're dropped into this really great place where you have access to create your own event. If you were working with us in the past, you may know that we had a massive spreadsheet we were maintaining with all of you that had hundreds and hundreds of events that no one liked. So we're like, okay, that's not good. We want to make this easier for you. So we've spent a lot of time working on building this whole tool back here where you click the button, create a new event, and you'll see what happens is you're automatically dropped into this flow where you get to write information about an event that you're planning. Let's see if we can show you what one looks like in progress. So for what's not shown here, and just to say, is when you log in initially and you haven't created anything yet, at the very top of the screen, there will be a space to fill out your Reimagine agreement, and then also to authenticate yourself for the ticketing portal that we're using. And you'll have to take both of those steps before you get to this stage. So if you have any questions about those as you go through it, feel free to reach out, but they're pretty self-explanatory. Then when you fill those out, you'll get right here, you'll enter your event title, you'll select from a range of dates. And sorry, I didn't want to say that I did misspeak earlier when we actually changed the concluding date of the festival to July 9th, because that is the 6-month anniversary of the first death in Wuhan, which was reported on January 9th. And so we thought that would be a really beautiful day to have a vigil together. We're going to be holding a monthly vigil once a month on the 9th. And so just want to let you know that the festival actually starts May 1st till July 9th. And you'll have the opportunity to pick all those days here. Then you select your start time for your event, and note that all the times that are going to be on the schedule until we improve this feature are going to be in Pacific time. So you will have to calculate the event time wherever you are in Pacific time, but there's an easy calculator for you there. Then you select, in this case, they're all digital events. And then you're going to select, this is what gets really important. You don't create an event right through a portal in itself. You have to also think about what service you want to use to stream your event. And so that can be Zoom, that can be Facebook, that can be YouTube. There's a number of different platforms, but you're going to select the name of the service you're using. And then here, this is important as well. You're going to then put the URL for that specific event. So if it's on Zoom, for example, you would create a meeting, and then you take the meeting URL and you drop it in here. And the way the system works is that when someone registers, and this is the neat thing, because typically on Facebook, for example, you don't know who's registering for your event. You don't even know who shows up. But here, you enter the URL, and then our system tracks the registrations for you here. And then when they register, it sends them the link to that URL. So only people that are registered get that URL. And that also means that on a platform like Zoom, for example, where there's a registration feature already built in, you don't even need to worry about that one per se. You could just be using the open meeting, and this provides that gateway to check for all your registrants, making the registration process seamless. So that's this field, and then let's go on. So then you get to select your the facets of your event that give it some description. So as users go look through the site, they can select all these different elements and see events around things they're interested in, whether it's advanced care planning or a dance event or a performance, whether it's in the daytime or evening, whether it's in another language, et cetera, et cetera. So you select these. Everyone adds a beautiful image. Please remember, Reimagine, we try not to use texts because then it starts making it ugly. It's not like marketing. It's supposed to be beautiful photography that maybe you have or you can find online. You share a little teaser description. And let's go to the bottom because this is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, the co-hosts. So many of you, as Darren mentioned, are going to have co-hosts and partners, and that is what we recommend and encourage. And so what happens here is for your co-host to show up, they really need to have an account here as well. So even though only one of you is entering the event, you want to get your co-host to sign up, or we can, if they're having a struggle, you can reach out to us and we can talk about it. But they should create an account, and when they do, when you notify us, we can create a link between the two, and then they get listed on the event, and you'll see what happens next. Because the cool thing is, not only are we building out an event now, but every collaborator is going to have a profile page where all your events live just on a single page for you if you have multiple events, and it has bio information and other things about you. So let's show them actually. Sorry, let's go to the ticketing thing really quick, and then we'll go there. So after you enter those details, select your co-hosts, you're going to fill out ticketing information, and this is important. Currently, you can choose between free and paid events. Those are the two options. And the thing is, if you're a collaborator and you want to set a price for your event because you're an artist and a creative, and this is partially how you generate revenue, or you have expenses for your event, you're paying a guest, et cetera, we want you to be compensated and believe that you should be. And Reimagine doesn't take any cut of any fees that you create for your event. Any revenue is generated, goes right to you. And so that's our pledge. We only generate donation-based revenue for our organization. If you want to collect donations yourselves for your event, we are working on a feature that allows sliding scale donations, but that's not available yet. But what most people across the internet are doing are, at your event itself, you could be asking for donations. And you can also be doing that in the ticketing teaser copy or in the event description, letting people know about a link that they can donate to right now, if that's how you want to do it. And so in that case, you would select a free event and then mention the donations, but we're working on this other feature as well. Next, you set your event capacity. So on Zoom, this is important because sometimes a meeting on Zoom, depending on your account, only has 100 people. Or maybe you have a larger account that has 500 people, or if it's Facebook, it's unlimited. And so if you have an unlimited account for some tool you're using, then you can enter a huge number here that you'll never reach, although maybe you will. But we can, I think, safely assume that if you had 6 digits, we could be okay. So that's what you do with the event capacity. And then finally, your event status shows up here, whether it's been published, and basically what happens is you will submit that for approval by our team. We'll review the copy to make sure you haven't made spelling errors. Though honestly, that's on you. We can't be spending all of our time editing your events. So please, as Dara mentioned, do a nice job writing them up and creating a nice description and a nice photo, but we'll make sure things are looking okay. And then we will submit the events. And then this is where later on, you'll be able to come back and you'll be able to see a count of how many people are registering for your events. You can check back here and see people are registering. There'll be a number that shows up. And you'll also be able to click into a file that is listed here that has all the emails and names of your potential attendees. And so this is the one place to look. It'll be a spreadsheet. You can download it at any time and you can be in touch and email your attendees as you desire, letting them know more information, any special things to know about the event, just to be in touch with them because they want to hear from you. Okay, so where does this end up? And this is where I want to show you this idea of what we're calling a public profile that gets generated just through registering. So for example, when you register, you have the opportunity to add these pieces of information that are shown here, what you're here to reimagine. So Day here is, I'm here to reimagine. Then he answered, how might art awaken our imagination, our awe, our nuanced eye, and love of the magic and mystery of our Earth. Yesterday was Earth Day, so sorry, we got one question in the chat, so I'm just reviewing it really quickly. If your Zoom allows, just to go back, if your Zoom allows 100 attendees, that's what you put in, because you should put the max number of attendees that your system allows, and that way you'll know when we will know when your event is sold out. That's the other great thing about our ticketing system, by the way, is on Zoom, there's no stopping it. People can register over and above, and so some people, if you have a 100-person limit, you'll never know if your event is full, because Zoom just lets more people show up, and those people will end up trying to get in and they can't. So yes. Oh, sorry, I saw a question that I thought it was for everyone. It was just to me. Someone asked us about what to do with that number. Alana, that was you. Hope that answers your question. And everyone got to hear the answer. So back to this profile page that gets created. You can share your story about what inspired you to do this work, a little bit more about you. And this is a way now for attendees to discover you. That's the one thing that they were asking for, is they wanted more resources and they wanted to learn more about the collaborators. So now there's a really easy way to showcase who you are. And you'll see you can add resources. We're going to talk about that in a second, but there's also a way to show all your events and previous Reimagine events. So here's Elisa, for example, and she's adding, if you scroll down, all kinds of great events. She's creating a thing during Reimagine called Mother's Day, where there's going to be tons of events for those of us who don't have our mothers. And you can see all the events get listed on her page here, which is great. And the other thing that I mentioned, I want to go back to now, is what you also saw is some of these pages have resources. And I just want to talk a little bit about how you would enter a resource. So when you enter a resource, here's an example of the one that Day Shilkrit created. He's outlining his 7-step practice of creating impermanent earth altars made from nature. And it's very easy. You'll add who created the resource. You can add a photo of a resource. You can add text about it. And if you scroll down even lower, you also, because we believe in the power of storytelling, can share the inspiration that inspired you to create that offering into the world. And that's another special feature to get people more connected to what's at the heart of your work. Sometimes it's that story that inspires people to consume something even more so than the thing itself. And then at the bottom, you'll see a link to get resource. And so basically, wherever your resource lives, if you have it published on your website, if it's wherever this individual resource lives, you can have a link that takes people directly to that resource if they want to consume it or learn more about it. And so this is just a directory to help people find your helpful information. So for example, here's this linked Day Leads workshops, and this links right to his workshop where people can actually, in this case, sign up and for a paid workshop. So hopefully he'll get a couple more attendees in his workshops because people will find him and discover him through this way, just by creating an account. So in a nutshell, that's really it. The only thing I would also mention, oh, sorry, yeah. So here it is. So you push the create an event, a new resource button under the resources category, and then you're just going to fill out a very similar process that you did for events, and you can just upload your resources there. So it's resources and events. It's the same system. You tag everything, you add the details, and you're on your way. So let's go to the public profile really quickly. The one thing to mention is when you create an account, what's not part of the account creation flow is a profile photo. So if you go to a public profile, you can just add your photo here and that will appear. Now on the right side of all the pages in this portal, you're gonna notice something very important. Some helpful links that you're gonna wanna read as you go, but at the very top of the page, let's see if it's here. Yes, on the right side, there is a help button. And we have spent oodles and oodles of time developing a help center for you. Now, before we had all these different kits and all kinds of different materials, we've consolidated that so you can just ask a question. Or if you want to read about it, you can click on For Collaborators, but there's a button that's persistent, and you'll see all of these little articles and information about all the different things that come up. If you scroll down, you'll see information about creating and submitting your events, which a lot of the information I just walked through, what types of events to consider, best practices for creating an effective event. There's how to host multiple events, all kinds of questions here. This is where you're gonna wanna live and kind of do research. If you have a question, just type it in and your answer should come up. If you're not finding what you're looking for there, then you can just email us at hello@letsreimagine.org. But this is really the best place to start. We've spent, as I mentioned, nights and days trying to make sure we create a robust help center for people of all stripes who can learn more about what this is doing and how to participate. So with that in mind, I feel like that was a full demo. Dara,
I just wanted to note that we will be adding more content sometime next week, specifically regarding more technical things after our webinar on Tuesday. So we're in the process of kind of consolidating that information, and we will send out an email just to alert you that, you know, when more information is added.
So Dara, I'm getting a question here, and I just want to, since we're getting not that many questions yet, which I really appreciate, although we're out to all your questions, Garrick was asking, can I host events multiple times? Yes, you can. We encourage you. You guys are the center of this whole movement that we're trying to build. And so you can host events multiple times. We want you to be active and really create amazing programming for people. And if you already have existing programs that you think you can adapt for this situation, please share with us. Because I think our hope is that the programming you're creating is the centerpiece for this entire initiative. And so the more, really, our value is one of inclusivity. So the more the merrier with the people on this call. Perfect. And look at that nice tab, how to host multiple events. And you'll find that in the Help Center. Thanks. I have my colleague Zubin here who's scrolling through these things, who's basically put together this Help Center. And so he really is, this kind of came out of his head onto the page. I see a couple really good questions that are being created. And maybe what we're going to do, we'll come back to those at the end and let Margaret share more information about marketing. And then we'll try to address some of these questions. Which you might also find in the Help Center, but we'll answer your questions live today.
Great, thanks, Brad. Hi all, my name is Margaret and I oversee marketing here at Reimagine. And I always like to start with this metaphor that, you know, a movement or an initiative just starts as a small flicker. And when we all contribute to building that flame and that fire, we can have a really large scale impact. And that's what we do here at Reimagine. And that's what we do as a community of event hosts and collaborators around the world, is that we all amplify this energy together. So it's really important when you're promoting your own event to also promote the larger festival so that people can find these other transformative and meaningful experiences that are happening in different parts of the world and covering different topics. So together, let's spark this collective flame and really see how many unique experiences we can bring to as many people as possible. So how are we going to accomplish that? Well, on our end here at Reimagine, we do everything that we can to spread awareness around your event. So you'll receive a unique event page, which lives on our homepage. And this is where you'll drive people to register for your online events. And we also highlight your resources, which Brad just walked through, which is a new offering that we've never done before. And we're really excited to expand how we're sharing what you do with our larger community. Further, we have various listings and mentions of upcoming events across the Reimagine website. And we also provide marketing materials for you to help you promote your event to your community. So that includes email templates, pre-designed social media graphics, as well as customizable social media graphics. And lastly, we will be running a large paid advertising campaign across social media platforms to promote the festival at large and drive people to the event schedule page. So our expectations of our amazing collaborator community is, again, that you really take an effort to promote the festival at large. And when you promote and mention your own event, you always mention it as a part of Reimagine Life, Loss, and Love. And then for all social media posts, it's amazing whenever possible to tag Reimagine in the Help Center. We've included all of Reimagine's social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we really encourage everybody to create a Facebook event page because this is such an incredible way to reach a wider audience. And when you do so, please add Reimagine as a co-host to the event so that we can add your event to our event calendar on Facebook. And there's instructions on how to do that in the Help Center if you've never done that before. And lastly, we share different event threads, including intentions that can be read at the beginning of your event to really create this integrated and cohesive energy between all the events happening throughout the course of the festival. So the marketing guide, which now lives in the Help Center, will walk you through everything that I've spoken to thus far. It will also include best practices to support your event, as well as official language for how to position the festival and position your event within the larger festival, and these email templates and graphics that I previously mentioned. So we really encourage you to send 4 distinct emails. You can do more than that, but this is sort of like the magical number. So the first is just your event invitation. And you don't have to have a fancy email platform to send this. You can just simply go through a Gmail to, the email list that you already are working with. Or if you have a MailChimp or a larger email list, it's great to send it that way. So this is just the first initial invite to let people know what your event is and to invite them to participate. And we offer some supportive language in how to frame that email. The next email is a reminder email just to get the momentum going and to continue that engagement. And then once you have your list of registrants, the day prior to your event, we encourage you to send a confirmation email. This can include any resources or information that participants need to know before showing up for your virtual event. And lastly, it's great to send a thank you email after your event takes place. This is also an opportunity to receive feedback on people's experiences in your event and promote any other upcoming events. Then for social media, we encourage these 6 core social media shares. So one is the overall festival announcement that just lets people know what Reimagine Life, Loss, and Love is and what your role in the festival is. Depending on when you get your event up and the date of your event, we encourage you to share a 2-week away event to let people know that your event is happening in 2 weeks. And then again, a 1-week away event announcement. And then we have 5 countdown graphics to do a really fun and sort of engaging countdown the 5 days leading up to your event, and then a day of event reminder. And this can also serve the day of event reminder to encourage people to register last minute if you still have registration open, and then a thank you post to thank everybody who participated. This is an example of a customizable graphic. And it's possible that we're going to be working on creating another set of customizable graphics as the festival evolves in the coming weeks, but this is what we're sharing right now. And you can fill out this graphic. It lives in Google Slides, so it's very easy to customize. You don't need any special fancy software. And once you have customized it, you simply save it and email it to me, and we'll be sharing these out on our Facebook and our Instagram accounts to get your event in front of more people, and all of the instructions around how to do that are in the Help Center. Here's an example of what the festival announcement graphic looks like. 2 weeks away, 1 week away, one of the countdown graphics, and then the thank you. So the next steps are to visit the Help Center and review all this information in the marketing section, and then create your Facebook event as soon as possible and add me, Margaret, as a co-host if your event is coming from a private personal Facebook account instead of an organization or business page. And then I will add Reimagine as a co-host. And again, all of this information lives in the Help Center. And if you have any questions, you can always email me at margaret@letsreimagine.org. And please, in the subject, just note that this is the collaborator marketing question so that I can get to you in a quick amount of time. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. That was fantastic. Yeah, so we're here really to amplify your events through Margaret's incredible work with marketing, and just think that part of the whole initiative is we'll be marketing it, and then when you market it, we're all going to build a halo together to kind of rise in all the boats, which is why we have this little cute boat here. We can rise the tides together. So what is the process for participating in the festival? So let's see. First, as we talked about, the next step really is to submit an event concept proposal that you'll find on our website and in the link we'll share with you right after this webinar. Then you're going to register, and that creates your public profile page. Then you add your event details, and away you go, ready to promote your event. The timeline for all of this, beginning April 16th is when we opened up the submission process for people to begin submitting events. So that's been going on for a week. And as of today, we are starting to publish on the site some of the events that are coming through. So if you even go to the schedule, you'll start seeing some of these events already up, and you can see what's happening. But that will happen in an ongoing way. And there were questions on the chat that you can submit events all the way through the festival. In fact, we expect the bulk of events to be coming in over the course of the next couple weeks. So you're not late, you're right on time, you're right where you should be. April 28th, as Dara was mentioning, we're hosting a second type of webinar. This is the intro webinar to the whole process. And then we want to share with you tools and tricks for a successful virtual experience, where we can walk you through some of the different platforms that are out there. A lot of people have questions about digital experiences, and we're compiling best practices for each of these major platforms, which will, especially for those of you who haven't done anything like this before, can be very helpful. And even for those of you who have done virtual events, we hope to provide some information that will help you elevate your online experience for your attendees. And then yes, May 1st, the festival begins. The official opening event for Reimagine is actually going to be May 9th. That is, as I mentioned before, the virtual vigil that we'll be hosting to commemorate the 4-month anniversary of the first death from coronavirus in Wuhan. And that will be a really special time to be together as well. So how is Reimagine possible? Just to share, the only way we've done any of this work to support this community is because of sponsors and donors like yourselves, honestly. And I'm saying that because the sponsors often are the folks who are hosting events, it turns out, who want to have a deeper engagement with our organization and all these incredible collaborators that you're meeting here. So we do need your help for this to exist if you're able or willing or interested. Also, please spread the word if you have any sponsors or donors that you think could make a difference in supporting our effort to bring this to the world. Because our goal really is to bring this to every community in the United States and beyond. And the work that you're doing sets the example. So if you're interested in championing this community, please reach out to development@letsreimagine.org. And that is really the conclusion of some of the things I have to say, mainly to say onward ho. This has been a hard period for so many of us, and to be able to come together in community and do something special as a collective, to bring voices together at a time when these voices are more important now than ever, your voices. It just feels like there's something small we can contribute together, and maybe by doing it as one, we can really amplify one another. I also want to share one word that as the festival schedule develops, we've heard this feedback before, so I just want to share. It can sometimes like, wow, it's overwhelming how many events there are. Because we want this to be diverse and inclusive of the incredible people like yourselves. And so just know that what we say is that's an expectation that we have. It's not necessarily about the number of attendees that come to your event. While that's nice to have a great audience, and I think we can help in some ways boost your audience to some degree, the promotion's mostly going to run through you. There's going to be a halo created through the whole thing. But what it's really about is this experience of creating an offering. And the major benefit that people tend to receive is the process of creating something, going through this experience together, building a community, and putting something into the world. Sometimes the best events have been for 3 people, literally. I mean, some of the best events have also been for 5,000 people, but that's not what this is about. This is about connecting, and you can meet people where they are, and by what you do, and we've seen this before, you're really changing lives and have the opportunity to do that together and be part of something bigger than all of us. And we're just honored to work with you all. So with that, that's the end of the formal webinar. I'm going to stay on and answer some questions for you. And then I know we said maybe there would be an optional breakouts, but what we've talked about is we do love the idea of having breakouts where we can meet each other, but we're going to be holding a collaborator happy hour so we can get you more connected to one another, which we think is really something special that we've seen in the Dose of Togetherness offerings, meeting people from across the world, and especially this community, that you can join that Facebook group and start doing that now. But we want to create a larger container for those types of conversations and use the time for anyone who wants to stay on now to just make sure that there's no questions going into this, that you feel like we've addressed the things that are top of mind for you. So first of all, just to say thank you again for all this great work. Expect a follow-up email from us that will kind of summarize and share with you the deck, share with you this copy of the recording, and then some of the helpful links to get you going. But you really are I just can't say how grateful we are to work with you, to know you, and to get to know you over the next couple months through this work. And we want to really build a special community because we have to rely on each other. And so for me and for our team, you are our community. And so thank you. Oh, and with that, let's get to some questions. If you want to stay on, you can. Let's see, what questions do we have? Also, if you want to raise your hand, I think there's a raise your hand feature. I'm going to use the questions that I see in the chat, but also if you want to raise your hand, we can call on you and you can ask a question out loud. Let me see how to do that if I can really quickly. All right, yes, so does anyone know how the hand raising thing works? I think if you click on participants, you can raise your hand. Is that true? I think that's true. I'm not the one leading the how to create a successful event on Zoom, by the way. So so fabulous. So when I see a question with a hand raise, we'll go there, but let me see if there's any questions in the chat that I can answer. Dara, did you see any questions that I didn't get to? Let me see. I'm seeing some.
I texted, hold on.
Okay, you've answered most of the questions, so thank you.
Oh, when will the sliding scale feature be activated?
So the sliding scale fee, to be honest, it took a mild miracle to be able to just do what we're doing. We'll have a call with the development team today. And so we're going to be trying to press them. We figured out that the feature is possible to build. So I don't really have an update. It should be probably sometime mid-time through the festival. So honestly, that's not your best plan of attack to wait for that. It's better just to move forward with what you have and go with that. And we'll let everyone know when the sliding scale feature becomes available. We just don't have a timeline. If I am able to get an estimate today from the development team, I will pass that along.
And I guess my recommendation on that in the meantime, if you do want to do some type of sliding scale, would be to mark your event as free and then follow up with the registrants with a donation link, which I've personally, been going to a lot of virtual events, and, they just, after you register, then they send you an email that says, please donate, and gives you, different options. And Brad, there was another question about, I have a question about our community collaborators. How do they get promoted in your system?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So you get promoted in a couple ways, or a number of ways, really. You're going to be on multiple kind of pages on our website. You're going to be listed in the festival calendar. You're going to be amplified vis-a-vis our Facebook channels, where you're going to have your own unique event page and your own profile page. So there's multiple ways for people to discover you. And then we, as an organization, are going to be working to try to boost the profile of the entire experience, which hopefully will draw more eyeballs to the schedule. There's also like recommended events that kind of pop up at the bottom of the, if there's a similarity between your event and someone else's and they purchase tickets, they'll be able to discover your event that way. We'll be doing spotlights, as Margaret showed, for those of you that create that little spotlight graphic. And then if there's events that, there will be some events that will feature that hopefully will be those that can drive attention to the entire festival that come in, that will then amplify your event. I mean, that's how this has often happened. And because sometimes we've seen, for example, that events that are, say it's an advanced care planning workshop, for example, a lot of people historically, maybe they're not as interested in advanced care planning, don't know about it yet, and they're scared about it. So they enter one way through coming to a comedy show, and then they discover, oh, wow, what is this? And as things move, they will start discovering more and more of your events. So it's really mostly organic, but because we're gonna be doing paid advertising for the entire festival, we hope that this starts amplifying all of your events. Hopefully that is a sufficient answer. So spotlights. Spotlights are, Margaret, if you're there, you can answer those. But I will also answer that. The spotlight is that thing that Margaret showed us. We have a little graphical template that in the marketing kit where you can add your photo and your image and some description of your event, and then we will publish that through our Facebook channels. And so there'll be a kind of consistent look and feel of a really cool graphic that will then we can share, and you can share it to your Facebook followers. And check the marketing kit online for that. What do you need from a sponsor? Well, I will share with you, or our development team can share with you what you get as a sponsor, first of all, because there's some really great benefits for being a sponsor in terms of logo placement and other ways we can help amplify some of the things you're doing. But honestly, for us, when you say what do we need, I guess there's two kinds of sponsors. There's in-kind sponsors, and then there's financial sponsors. And if there's something you think could be a great in-kind offering, we'd love to hear how we can work together on that. It could be in this digital world, I guess the in-kind is a little more challenging than some of the things we were doing in the physical environment. But we would love to work with you to think about how you can contribute any in-kind work to this initiative. Obviously, we need fiscal sponsorship because that's what keeps the lights on in the organization and allows us to build these features that we're talking about to support you and all these things that we're doing. But if you reach out to us, or you can even reach out to me, Brad at letsreimagine.org, and I'm happy to talk to you about it, because that's a big part of my role, is to try to help us sustain ourselves as an organization. And there are sponsorship levels, so we can share that with you if you reach out. And there's a sponsorship manager who can connect with you and walk you through that. The ideal length of an event, we have a great question here. Go ahead, Dara.
So, we've seen effective virtual events that really range anywhere between 30 minutes to even 2 hours, although I'd say an hour and a half of what I've seen is usually around the max, depending on what you're offering. But what I would think about is that it really depends on how much interactivity is incorporated, because I think obviously just having a talking head for a really long time is hard to keep people engaged in a virtual environment. But if there are, say, small group breakout sessions, ways in which you're speaking with people, I do think it can be extended. And what I would say is, start with like what the goals of your event are, and like how deep you want to go, and then try to, organize things accordingly. We will speak about this, by the way, on that webinar on the 28th in more detail around what the considerations could be.
Can we unmute everyone? I just feel like I just want to say hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry.
Hi.
Great to see you all. It's so nice. And if there's
What are
any
you
more
wearing
questions,
today?
what's that?
Remember the last session someone asked you, if you were wearing pajamas?
Yes, thanks for reminding me.
Sorry.
I have to say that did not inspire me to change my bottom wear.
Sorry for the digression.
No worries. That's why the muting is always a dangerous proposition. It's the first question I get is what's going on below the table.
Brad, Lily had a question about the
Yes.
spotlights. Did you answer that one? I don't remember.
Yeah, I did.
You did.
Okay, great.
Yeah. My whole thing blanked out for a while. I missed that whole thing.
Why don't we I just want to hear one word for like kind of how you're feeling right now. If I might just get your pulse check on like what your mental state is after this webinar. Maybe one word, and we can just go popcorn style. Anyone who wants to share?
Engaged.
Inspired.
Excited.
Enthusiastic.
Inspired.
Still nervous.
Yes.
Lifted by seeing people's
Don't
faces
be
and
nervous.
hearing their voices.
Excited, overwhelmed.
Connected.
Hey Brad, this is Bree. I was only able to pop on now. Will I be able to see this? Will you be rebroadcasting it?
Yes. We'll be emailing you out the link to what we just shared.
Great.
And so you can all review it with the slides. And Claudia, let's connect and help, even though honestly, all the range of emotions is good. So I'm sure even if you said the one emotion that was like the positive emotion, they all serve their function. You might be feeling, we're complex beings who maybe have the emotion that Claudia shared as well. And I appreciate you for that vulnerability. And so, yeah, we want to really support you guys in this journey. And we're here to do that because you are our people. So anything we can do to make this easier, we want to try to do.
Well, hopefully the next webinar will help, because my nervousness has to do with creating the virtual experience.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I think that'll be a good one, and hopefully that we'll be able to learn from each other and learn from some of the experts that we have that are going to be helping us think through that.
And just one thing to think about, because I just know now that we're doing virtual events on a regular basis, I have gotten much more comfortable with it. And so one thing that you might want to think about is how you can do some practice rounds with your friends. Trying to get like even 5 people on a event with you in anticipation of your event, I think will make it a lot, I don't know, it just makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, it is stressful when I agree, Dara, when you're trying to think about the technology, for example, in your first time, and you're kind of fumbling around while trying to do your best job connecting with an audience. That's also why collaborations are fun too. If I encourage you to reach out to each other, because little sneak peek here. This is my colleague Zubin, who's been helping as we have all these slides. He's been helping go through the slides. We happen to be housemates, which is really nice. Quarantine, there's three people quarantined together, and he just happens to be a good friend and a colleague. So he's able to then work with me on these slides, which is really, it is really helpful. He doesn't have to need, it wouldn't need to be an in-person person to have that work out really well. But as you know, it's nice to be in contact with anyone you can. So
Yeah, great.
So I have a question.
Yes, Lily.
Speaking of that, and Zubin. So when you're sharing the slides, are you doing that through the screen share function, or is that a separate whole thing?
Yeah,
that
so
you're
we
doing?
use Google Docs, Google Slides for all presentations. So when you select share screen in Zoom, you can select any of your windows that you have open to share. So I pretty much just go into present mode, so it takes up the whole screen, and click share screen, and then it'll be on everyone's screen. And we kind of go back and forth. If you've been on the Dose of Togetherness, I'll stop sharing, so then someone's full screen, full face can show up while they're talking, and I'll go back and forth. And that's the kind of stuff we'll talk about through the webinar. So we have learned a lot by doing over a dozen virtual events so far. And we've reached thousands of people. So we've made mistakes and we've learned, and there's a lot to share.
Yeah. And just even like, for example, I mean, you probably could tell I was reading notes, but because I wasn't sharing the screen, I could have my notes in the PowerPoint. And so I wasn't like, I know I was looking down, but like I wasn't fully looking down, even just being able to have it on the screen so I could be close to the camera more. I think like that it does really help. And just to say too that, I mean, it's obviously helpful that Zubin is right next to Brad, but you could easily just ask somebody somewhere else. And, if you practice through, then, you can give them signals of like when they're going to need to switch the slides. Like, I wasn't, Zubin is not with me right now. So as I was going through my slides, he could, I kind of took an extra long pause to indicate that that was.
But, and also just a little tip around that is Zubin also has it printed out, the slides, so he can see a slide in advance, what's about to happen. So he knows kind of when you're about to finish one, kind of what's coming up next, so he can kind of prepare. So that's a really helpful thing if you're remote with somebody, for that person to also have a printout of what you're doing so they can follow along. But to be fair, I've also learned in some ways, because I've been using Zubin as a really helpful crutch, you can do this by yourself.
Yeah.
And I have done it. It's just kind of how your learning curve is, right? So if you start practicing probably by yourself, you probably get it faster than I did, because I was relying on Zubin initially, which was really helpful, but has now provided a slight block in my own ability to be self-sufficient.
And one thing is, we have a second monitor. We're working in a room where we're not using a second monitor, but my normal desk, I usually have my second monitor, and Zoom actually works really well if you have a second monitor connected. You can have your presentation on one side, and then have the people on another screen. It's like kind of awesome. I feel like I'm producing a TV show and I'm on two monitors.
Cool. And thank you, Rosalind, for the tip about the New York Times tech. And we do actually have some links of already in the Help Center around technology, but we're putting together some of our own materials. A lot of those like link out to other people, but we're trying to kind of aggregate all of these things into something that you can look at. And if you want to get it probably won't have as like much information around, like if you want to get super fancy, but like for most people it would work.
And just to, I don't see any other questions, but I just want to share, Claudia, to the emotion that you raised. The part of our hope, one of our major goals, is to build creative confidence among you all, and take that risk and the fact you're all here, I think you're all going to do it, and we're all going to take this risk together. And that's part of it. It's like fail fast, fail forward, but we're going to learn and grow, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's the nice thing about the online events, especially, you may have seen, is when you see people in their living rooms, you're already a human. So it's personal by itself. So you're afforded more, not that you don't want to have a really great flowing tight event, but there's something really human about being connected and looking into someone's home or space that just automatically, I don't say lowers the bar, but it makes us feel more connected. So don't worry about it and just have fun. And that's, you know, I'm sure there'll be stressful moments, but it's really nice to connect with people when you get to see them and you're offering content that you believe in.
And I could just say personally, when we've done the dose of togetherness and there's been some like tech snafu, it's like people will just start typing these like motivational like messages to us of like, you've got this, like it's totally like everybody is so understanding. And so it's just actually created these incredibly sweet moments in a way. So I think to that end, I think, you know, kind of practicing and getting more comfortable and, you know, kind of bringing that energy into it will also just build the connection between you and your attendees. So it's almost, you know, again, to Brad's point, it's not that you don't want to practice and make sure you have a good flow, but at the same time, I think a little bit more of a conversational kind of interaction, I think just invites more connection in the space.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I think the struggle for me is just an internal one with knowing I'm really good in person and I read the room and I can, you know, adjust what I want to talk about because I can read people's body language and, you know, get the feedback from them. So I have to figure out how to make that happen in this kind of content. I see that it does because the virtual vigil was incredibly moving. And, but that was partly because it was so well scripted. You know, so I just have to think about it.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to see what you drum up. So that's so anyway, everyone, is there any last, okay, Lily.
Yeah, I wanted to offer something to Claudia. So when I've done some of this before, I put it on gallery view so I can see the faces, as many as possible. And I have a large monitor, so it helps. But it really, you can read the room. It's a different way of reading the room, but you can kind of scope out how people, you know, are listening, or are they distracted, or that kind of thing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then you can be like, I see you over there.
Eating peanuts.
Eating peanuts, exactly.
That person's not involved.
Thank you, Pamela.
All right.
So, okay, everyone, thank you so much for being with us today. You've been so outstanding per usual. And please join us tomorrow for a dose of togetherness. We have an adventurer who's going to be leading it. I don't even know what that means, but I'm really excited to find out. He was.
How do we do that?
At the Greater Good Science.
I will add a link right now. So it's actually this man, Stacy Bear, who is a war veteran, and he created an adventure company. But the focus of the talk is all around finding awe and beauty, even in like distressing times, as well as we're going to be having this woman, Belinda Liu, who runs this amazing organization or company called Gratitude Blooming. And she's going to lead a meditation and activity around gratitude. So I can say I've spoken with both of them multiple times, and they're, you know, just very lovely human beings. So I will paste the link in just a second. And there will be, you know, we also just next week, we're having a special dose of togetherness on Monday that's really focused on connections. So we're just having a meditation and then giving people more time to connect with each other in the small breakout groups, because we often hear from people that they want to talk to each other more. And then on Wednesday, we have Katie Butler, who's amazing. She was actually helped us organize the vigil, and that should be up by the end of today too.
Great. So, thank you.
And then finally, check out the schedule that's up now. You can start seeing the inspiration at letsreimagine.org. Follow the links and you'll see the events starting to come in, and hopefully we'll see your events there soon. We can't wait to see what unfolds together.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.